Effective or not effective? That is the question before the midterm elections. Now, we know the answer. Hi, I'm Yu, your navigator in this channel. Toward the midterm elections 2022, former U.S. President Donald Trump endorsed numerous Republican candidates. More than 100 of them won in the U.S. Senate, House, and gubernatorial elections. But we can't say such endorsements really worked and helped the Republican Party increase the number of seats in the U.S. Congress. The number of Republican governors even decreased. Many of the U.S. media point out that former President Trump is to blame for the Republican Party's failure to dramatically increase the number of seats in the Congress. The endorsements were not as effective as they were initially estimated. In what ways they were not effective? There are various analyses about the results of the midterm elections. You'll know more details. Let's get started. Hi again. We are still waiting for the Senate runoff in Georgia, which is scheduled on December 6th. Last week in Alaska, there were intriguing developments. Two of the high-profile Trump-endorsed candidates were defeated in the U.S. Senate and House elections. In the Senate election, incumbent Republican Lisa Murkowski won, defeating Trump-endorsed Kelly Tshibaka, also Republican. Murkowski was one of the 7 Republican senators who voted to convict former President Trump in January 2021. In the House election, incumbent Democrat Mary Peltola was re-elected, defeating Trump-endorsed Republican Sarah Palin, former governor and vice presidential nominee in 2008. Peltola was elected in a special election in August and became the first Alaska native in the U.S. Congress. In the special election, too, she defeated Sarah Palin. So, the Trump-endorsed Republican candidates both lost in this red state. But of course, it's too early to say Alaska is getting purple. Murkowski is a respected Republican, and in the gubernatorial election, incumbent Republican Governor Mike Dunleavy was re-elected. He was endorsed by former President Trump. This is the result of tabulation provided by Alaska Division of Elections. His popular votes are 2 times more than the votes the second-place Democrat Les Gara gained. Alaska's elections were held under a new election system called ranked choice. For detailed information about Alaska's ranked choice and top 4 primary, please watch part 1 of this series. Let's check the tally. The U.S. Senate. No change. 50 seats for the Democrats and 49 for the Republicans. We are waiting for the runoff in Georgia, which is scheduled on December the 6th. Whatever the runoff result is, the Democratic Party will keep controlling the Senate. The U.S. House. 220 seats for the Republicans and 213 for the Democrats. We are still waiting for the tabulation results of California 13th District and Colorado 3rd District. According to reports by major U.S. media, the Republican candidates are leading in both districts with a razor-thin margin. The New York Times, Politico, and Fox News have projected the Republican won in California the 13th, but haven't projected the result of Colorado the 3rd. CNN has projected the Republican won in Colorado the 3rd, but hasn't called California 13th yet. Irrespective of the results of the two districts, it is confirmed that the Republican Party will control the House. What about the results of the gubernatorial elections? Gubernatorial elections were held in 36 states. Before the midterm elections, 22 governors were Democrats, and in 28 states the governors were Republicans. As a result of midterm elections, the number will change like this: 24 Democrats and 26 Republicans. The Democrats gained 2 states, and Republicans lost 2 states. How did the Trump endorsements affect the elections? In Part 4, we focused on the toss-up states to see how Democrats managed to win the majority in the Senate and minimize the loss of seats in the House. In order to see the effectiveness of the endorsements, let us widen the scope and take a look at the national trend. There are so many sources and resources on the internet. I have relied on the reports by the Washington Post, for example. This page has been very helpful. You can search for the Trump-endorsed candidates you are looking for, like this: Mehmet Oz of the Pennsylvania Senate race, Harriet Hagman of Wyoming House race, of course, Joe Biden is not in the list. Just kidding. And the Ballotpedia is great in specifying the sources. In fact, it's been really difficult to follow the endorsement one by one. An official list doesn't exist, but Ballotpedia picked up each endorsement with a source, or plural sources in some cases. It has been following the Trump endorsements not only for this year's midterm elections, but since 2018 midterm elections. So what does Ballotpedia say about the number of endorsements? We are here, the year 2022, this year, and 2018, the year when the previous midterm elections were held. 2020, this is the year the presidential election was held and Joe Biden was elected. At the same time, congressional elections were held in this year. Look at the number of endorsements. In 2018, it was 132. In 2020, endorsements increased up to 303. And this year, 2022, the endorsements were 495. So the number of Trump endorsements this year was 3 times more than the previous midterm elections 4 years ago. And the primary success rate is 93%. General election success rate is 83%. The numbers are marvelous. Now, let's take a closer look. First, the Senate. In the Senate races, 35 elections were held, including the special election in Oklahoma. In my count, 25 candidates were endorsed by former President Trump. 17 candidates won, and 7 candidates lost. Georgia is not called yet. So about 68% of the Trump-endorsed candidates won. The rate is high. But 17 candidates who won the Senate elections are all incumbents. And there is no flip. On the other hand, one seat is flipped from Republican to Democrat. So the Trump endorsements were not necessarily effective. This trend is almost the same as the toss-up states as we saw in Part 4. Now, let's quickly see the margin of the percentage of each state. In Pennsylvania, the state where there was a flip, the margin was not so big. The Democrat, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, won by a margin of 5.5. The battle was believed to be very tight, but the reality is that he won, not easily, but with more than 5-point margin. In the other toss-up states, the margin are between 4.9 in Arizona and 14.6 in Colorado. In Wisconsin, Trump-endorsed incumbent Republican Ron Johnson won, but with a margin of only 1 point. And in Nevada, where Democrat was said to be weak, the margin was 0.8, and eventually won the race. Next, let's see the gubernatorial elections. The gubernatorial elections were contested in 36 states. My count of the number of Trump-endorsed Republican candidates was 17. 9 of them won, and 8 candidates lost. 53% of the candidates won. But 8 out of 9 winners are incumbents. There was a flip from Democrat to Republican in one state, Nevada. But there were also flips from Republicans to Democrats in 3 states. As we saw earlier, the Democratic Party increased the number of governors in 2 states. The Republican Party decreased the number of governors in 2 states. Now, let's take a close look and do some analysis. These are the results of all the states where the Trump-endorsed candidates ran. The figures are the percentage of the votes each candidate gained and the margin. The upper table is the 8 states the Democrats won. The lower table is the 9 states the Republicans won. The states in gray color are toss-up states according to Real Clear Politics. Arizona, Kansas, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, Oklahoma. You are now only seeing the results. Let's add some information on these tables. Flip means states that Democrats flipped. Blue eye means the toss-up states the incumbent Democrats defended. So the Democrats flipped the seat in one toss-up state and defended all 3 incumbent seats. And there are 2 more flips. Likewise, let's add the same information to the Republican table. Flip means flip from Democrat to Republican. Just Nevada. Red eye means the toss-up states the incumbent Republican defended. Only Oklahoma. Black eye means the states the incumbents are re-elected. If you compare the upper and lower tables, it's obvious how well the Democrats fought, generally speaking. There are more tens of ways and perspectives to judge and analyze the results. This is just one of them, but it's interesting, isn't it? Now, let's move on to the U.S. House. First, let's do the same thing. The elections were held in 435 congressional districts in all the 50 states. There were 177 Trump-endorsed Republican candidates. This is my count, based on the Washington Post and BALLOTPEDIA, with some additional information. There are also candidates whom former President Trump just mentioned and did not actively support. Trump-endorsed candidates won in 165 districts and lost in 12 districts. And in the House race, 93% of the Trump-endorsed candidates won. As usual, let's check the number of incumbents. 137 were incumbents. Okay, then what about the flips? Out of the 165 winners, there were 6 flips from Democrats to Republicans. So what's the breakdown of those 12 candidates who lost? Out of 12, there were 3 flips from Republicans to Democrats. Now let's see more of this part in the blue circle. 137 incumbents equal to 83% of the winners, and the flips from Democrats to Republicans equal to 3% of the winners. Not so impressive. For your information, the flips from a Republican to Democrat equals to 25% of those who lost. Thinking of these numbers, former President Trump's endorsements were not very effective in winning or especially taking back seats from Democrats. But don't laugh. In the next elections, presidential or else, those who were endorsed and eventually won could become election machines. I will touch upon this aspect in another video. Lastly, let us briefly take a look at what happened to those Republicans who voted for impeaching Trump in the Congress. Here is the list of 7 senators. They voted to convict Donald Trump on February the 13th, 2021 in the Senate. Not all the senators faced the midterm elections this year. Senators of Class 3 are these 3 senators. Trump was angry at the voting behavior and tried to intervene with the elections. And it's only Lisa Murkowski of Alaska who ran and advanced to the general election. The others didn't run and announced retirement. In the 3 states, these Republican candidates were on the ballot in the general elections. In Alaska, Murkowski was also on the ballot. The other 3 were all endorsed by Trump. As we saw at the beginning of this video, Tshibaka lost in Alaska, Ted Budd won in North Carolina, Mehmet Oz lost in Pennsylvania. So, Trump's attempt was only successful in North Carolina. What about the Republican House representatives who voted for impeaching Trump on January 13, 2021? Here is the list. 10 representatives. Unlike senators, all of them were supposed to face elections this year. 4 of them decided not to run. There were several reasons, including disappearance of congressional districts as a result of redistricting. 6 representatives ran in the primaries, but 4 of them lost, including Liz Cheney of Wyoming. She's the vice chairperson of a select committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol. All of them were defeated by Trump-endorsed candidates. Only 2 advanced to the general elections. Let's see what happened to those who contested in the general elections. One of the 2 survivors from Trump attack eventually won in California 22nd District. Trump-endorsed candidates won in Illinois 16th, lost in Michigan the 3rd, won in Michigan 4th. In New York 22nd, the candidate was not Trump-endorsed and won the election. Ohio 16th District disappeared due to redistricting. and another Trump-endorsed candidate won in South Carolina 7th, lost in Washington 3rd. And in Washington's 4th district, the other survivor, Dan Newhouse, won. And Trump-endorsed candidate from Wyoming, Harriet Hageman, won. So out of 10 who voted for impeaching Trump, 2 were re-elected. But Trump-endorsed candidate won in 4 congressional districts only. 2 of them were incumbents, and the other 2 won in formerly Republican districts. There was no flip from Democrats to Republicans. There are a lot of explanations. Some say that there were rifts between Trump and mainstream Republican leadership, and the campaigns didn't go smoothly. Others say that voters chose moderate politicians rather than extreme conservatives. During the primary season, there were reports by U.S. media about the Democratic Party's efforts to pour money into Trump-endorsed candidates' campaigns. The logic was there would be more chance for Democrats to win against Trump-endorsed extremists than facing off with moderate Republicans. The results may have proved the effectiveness of these tactics. Another explanation is that voters avoided Trump-endorsed candidates in response to President Biden's emphasis on protecting democracy. What do you think? The midterm elections are meant to elect the representatives for the House and the Senate by judging the candidates' political stance and policies. But former President Trump's support and endorsements of Republican candidates were apparently for his own next presidential campaign. Nearly 1 month has passed since the voting day of the midterm elections, but the runoff in Georgia is to be held, and this series of video will continue for a while. I am Yu. Stay with this channel, and please don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you soon. Bye.